The Strength of a Rose. A true life story of courage and fate. Emma sat on the stone bench outside the English department, her shoulders shaking as silent tears streamed down her face. Her final semester was supposed to be a time of joy, a period where she basked in the glory of her academic achievements, but instead, she found herself suffocated by fear and frustration. Professor Richards, her literature lecturer, had turned her academic journey into a nightmare. It had begun with subtle hints, longer than usual stares, lingering handshakes, and unnecessary compliments about her intelligence and beauty. Then, the hints had escalated into veiled offers. "Emma, you're one of my brightest students," he had said one afternoon, resting against his desk with a smirk. "But even brilliance needs guidance. If you want to pass, you know what to do." Emma had felt the ground beneath her tremble. She was no fool. She knew exactly what he meant. But she was not going to compromise her dignity for a grade. She had worked too hard for that. From that moment on, she did everything she could to avoid him. She skipped classes when necessary, made sure she was never alone with him, and ignored his suggestive texts. However, Professor Richards was not one to take rejection lightly. When the results for her continuous assessment were released, she realized with dread that her grades were missing from the portal. Panic clawed at her chest. She had worked tirelessly on those assignments. She rushed to his office, hoping there had been a mistake, but his response crushed her hopes. "You know the solution, Emma," he had said, his smirk deepening. "A private meeting might sort things out." Emma felt trapped. If she spoke up, she risked failing her final course. If she gave in, she would lose a part of herself she could never regain. That evening, as she sat on a quiet bench near the library, hugging herself as sobs racked her body, a gentle voice interrupted her misery. "Are you okay?" Emma looked up, startled. A tall young man with kind brown eyes stood before her. She recognized him, Ethan, a quiet but brilliant student from the history department. First, she hesitated. She had been carrying this burden alone for so long. But there was something about Ethan's expression that made her feel safe. When he sat beside her and patiently waited, she finally broke down and told him everything. Ethan's face hardened with anger. "This is unacceptable," he said firmly. "You can't let him get away with this." Emma shook her head. "What choice do I have? If I report him, he might fail me. If I give in," her voice cracked, "I won't be able to live with myself." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we expose him." They devised a plan. Emma started recording her interactions with Professor Richards, carefully collecting evidence of his advances. Meanwhile, Ethan reached out to a student activist group and a senior professor known for his integrity. The evidence was damning. When the recordings and messages were presented, the university was left with no choice but to act. The news spread like wildfire. More victims came forward, and soon, the once feared lecturer was stripped of his position and banned from teaching. Emma passed her course on merit and graduated with honors. As she stood on the podium, holding her certificate, she looked out into the crowd and found Ethan beaming at her. She couldn't have done it without him. Years passed, but fate had more surprises in store. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Emma stumbled upon an old high school group photo. Her heart skipped a beat. A familiar face stood beside her in the picture. It was Ethan. She gasped. How had she not recognized him before? Memories came flooding back. Ethan had been the quiet, intelligent boy who had suddenly disappeared from school. She had often wondered what had happened to him. Without hesitation, she reached out to him. When they met again, Ethan shared his story. He had won a scholarship abroad due to his academic excellence, and though life had been tough, he had never let his struggles define him. Now he was back, working for an NGO that fought corruption in education. Their bond deepened. What started as friendship turned into something more, something neither of them had expected but both had longed for. They had found each other again, not just as old friends, but as two hearts destined to be together. Ethan had once saved her from injustice, and in return, fate had gifted them a love built on respect, courage, and destiny. Moral lesson: Courage in the face of adversity. Emma refused to compromise her dignity, even when faced with academic failure. Always stand firm for what is right. The power of support. Never be afraid to seek help. The right people will stand by you. Exposing evil leads to justice. Ethan's determination to reveal the truth helped stop a predator. Fate works in mysterious ways. The people meant for us will always find their way back. Hard work pays off. Ethan's scholarship and resilience shaped his future, proving that diligence opens doors. At Love and Live Library, we believe in sharing real stories that inspire change. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's create a world where justice prevails and love finds a way.